Hello and welcome back to the channel. In the previous lecture, we have seen all about monitoring and management in Azure Data Factory, where we have seen how we can monitor Azure Data Factory resources using two ways, like the Azure Data Factory Monitor as well as the Azure Monitor, which will give you capability to monitor all your resources within your Azure subscription. But in this lecture, let's focus on the Data Factory version 2 and what it brings on the table as compared to the previous version. So we'll see that in detail, as well as we will take a deep dive into the continuous integration and the delivery, which is also known as CI/CD and the DevOps practices for Azure Data Factory. So without further ado, let's get into it. Okay, so first discuss about Azure Data Factory versus the Azure Data Factory version 2 and what are the benefits of Azure Data Factory version 2 over its predecessor. So we will see that in the four major categories, which is data movement, transformation, orchestration and integration with other Azure services. So you already know that the Azure Data Factory is like a data integration service, and it will enable us for creating and scheduling as well as managing our data pipelines. And you already know that data pipeline is nothing but a sequence of activities and transformation of the data that you are going to process and extract the meaning out of it. And these activities can also include like the ingestion, the transformation, loading into the target systems. So let's first discuss about the key features of Azure Data Factory previous version. So for the previous version, we have the data movement. So ADF supports the extraction as well as loading of data from various sources, and it could be like on-premise as well, or it could be cloud storage as well as the SSAS, which is software as a service applications. We also got the data transformation, in which it allows us for performing data transformation using like the built-in data flow activities or by leveraging the code-based transformation using Azure Databricks as well as HD Insights. We also got the data orchestration here, in which it provides visual interface for designing as well as orchestrating complex data workflows. And also it has seamless integration with other Azure services like the Azure SQL database, then we got the data lake storage, blob storage and many more. But now let's discuss about Azure Data Factory version 2, and we will see how it has like major enhancements in these all four categories. So the first one is it has the improved scalability. So this ADF version 2 will offer improved scalability, which will allows us for handling large data volumes as well as we can process like a complex data workflows, and that will be like more efficiently as compared to the Azure Data Factory version 1. It also leverages like the Azure integration runtime, which will enable us for distributing our data processing across multiple nodes in the cluster, which could give you like the increased performance. It also has the enhanced data flow. So this Azure Data Factory version 2 have introduced a powerful drag and drop data flow designer, which is very easy to use for any beginner developer as well, and gives us a codeless environment, and it provides like a visual interactive interface for building our data transformation logic, and this makes it very easy to design and implement complex data transformations without like extensive coding. The next benefit is brought is like mapping data flows. So this features allows us to visually define the data transformation using the rich set of built-in transformation as well as the data connectors. Then we have the control flow activities. So Azure Data Factory version 2 has introduced control flow activities, which enable us for conditional and the interactive executions of our data pipeline. So with this control flow activities, we can incorporate like branching, looping as well as the conditional logic into our data transformation. Also we have the benefit of built-in data flow debugging. So this ADF version 2 provides built-in debugging capabilities for data flows, as well as it allows us to validate and troubleshoot our data transformation very effectively. So to conclude this topic, Azure Data Factory and its evolution into the Azure Data Factory version 2 have revolutionized the way we handle our data integration as well as the orchestration in the cloud. And also this ADF version 2 offers improved scalability, enhanced data flows, as well as built-in debugging and all this stuff, which makes it a very powerful tool for managing complex data workflows. So this was all about Azure Data Factory version 2 and what all the benefits it's brought from its predecessor. So now let's talk about the most important topic in this agile development, which is continuous integration and the delivery, which is CI/CD. So let's talk about that now. Okay, so now let's discuss about continuous integration and continuous delivery, which is also known as CI/CD. So in this topic, we are going to cover like what is CI/CD, why it is needed, and we will see how we can integrate our Azure Data Factory with the Git, as well as how we can create like the build and release pipelines. So let's first talk about what is CI/CD and its origin. So in the initial stages, every software company has the two teams, which is development and the operations. So development team handles all the code development and testing it, as well as the operations teams handle the deployment stuff as well as support the application when it goes into the production. But eventually these teams has lack of communication, and these teams have like different priorities of tasks on their own. So there was a lack of integration between these teams, and that can cause like slower development, as well as in the agile development world that was not the very efficient way to develop your data solution. So to solve these problems, in the early 2007 there was an introduction of DevOps. So DevOps means like the union of people as well as processes and the products for enabling continuous delivery of value to our customers. But what does it mean actually? So this DevOps will provide like a several tools we can use for better team collaboration, and it also has the tools for automated build processes as well as testing, version controls, and the package management. So that's a quite a bit to cover. So we are going to cover them eventually. So let's talk about the characteristics of DevOps first. So the first one being the collaboration as well as the communication. So DevOps will emphasize the collaboration and effective communication between the development team as well as the operations team, and it also encourages breaking down the silos and fostering a culture shared responsibility as well as the accountability, which is very important to make an integration between these two teams. Then we got the automation as well. So automation plays a very vital role in DevOps. So it involves like automating repetitive tasks. So this includes like build, deployment, testing, as well as monitoring processes. So this automation will help us increasing the efficiency of the process, which reduces the errors as well and accelerates the delivery of software, which is very important in the agile world. So it also have like the continuous integration, which is also known as CI. So continuous integration and the continuous development, which is CI/CD. So this DevOps will promote like the practices of CI/CD, and this CI involves like integrating code changes frequently into the shared repository and enable us to detecting any integration issues. And CD will extend CI by automating the deployment works, allows us for rapid as well as reliable software deliveries. It also has the benefit of monitoring and logging. So DevOps will emphasize like the real-time monitoring and logging of applications as well as the infrastructures. And it also involves collecting and analyzing the data to gain insights into system performance. And it also help us to detect issues as well as facilitate proactive management as well as the improvement. And it also have like the agile principles. So DevOps will align with the agile principle. It emphasize the flexibility as well as the adaptability and iterative development. And it also embrace agile practices such as short development cycle as well as the frequent releases and customer collaboration, which is very important. As well as very important topic to discuss, which is scalability and the resilience. So DevOps will aim to build scalable as well as reliable systems. Because it focuses on designing architecture and implementing the practices that can handle increased workloads, as well as it could adapt to any changing demands and recovers from the failures quickly, which is like a great thing. So this characteristic will collectively enable every organization to streamline their software delivery process, and it also improves the collaboration, accelerates time to market, and delivers very high quality software products. Okay, so now let's discuss about the main focus of today's lecture, which is continuous integration and the continuous delivery. So in every software development process, these are the following steps which are involved. The first step will be the planning, where you will gather all the requirements from the client and prepare a source to target mapping sheet and other documents in the planning phase. Then the developers will start coding the application and starts development, and that goes to the building the software. And after you build the software, it goes from the testing phase where it is getting tested and then released. And then we got the release, where we will deploy our software from the lower environment to the higher environment, like the production environment. But once this is done, that job or software will be monitored and further improved and goes from all this cycle, like planning, coding, then building, then it got tested, then release and got deployed. So this cycle goes on to maintain the continuous integration and the continuous delivery of your software. So in continuous integration, there comes the coding, building and testing in picture, because you could have like many software developers in your team. So those needs to be integrated, and all the developers should collaboratively work to build the end-to-end solution. And to do that, there are several tools for continuous integration. And if we talk about the continuous delivery as well as the deployment, some organization follows regular continuous deployment of their builds. So this is how continuous integration as well as the CD, which is continuous delivery or the deployment, are separated from each other through these phases of software development process. But you will ask where this code actually comes into picture if we talk about Azure Data Factory, because we are just dragging and dropping the object in our Azure Data Factory studio. But to relate it, every Azure Data Factory object can be represented as a JSON document. So that will be our code for continuous integration. But if you develop any Java code or Java application, you will be having the Java files present. But in case of the Azure Data Factory, if you want to deploy your Azure Data Factory to any other environment, then you need the ARM template, which is like Azure Resource Manager templates for your Azure Data Factory. So this is also represented as a JSON, which contains all the characteristic of your ADF pipeline, and you can then easily deploy your ADF pipeline to any other environment using these ARM templates. So this is all about CI/CD in Azure Data Factory. Okay, so since you now understood about what is CI/CD, let's jump on to the different options available to implement CI/CD in Azure Data Factory. So the first option is using the Azure Data Factory Publish. So far we have developed our Azure Data Factory pipelines with different ADF resources, and once we debug our pipeline and if we are satisfied with our changes or our work, then we have used the Publish button in Azure Data Factory. So same thing we are doing here. So let's say we have the two developers working on the same Azure Data Factory resources and it is in the live mode. So we are using the same resources here and using the publish to publish all those changes in our Azure Data Factory repository. But in this case, there is no version control involved. So these developers cannot work collaboratively and we cannot maintain a version of their work, so that it could be reviewed and then it got published if their work is satisfied. But we can do that using the Git integration. So in our Git integration, what we have done is we have integrated our Azure Data Factory Studio with the GitHub repository. But ADF can also integrate with the Azure DevOps repos or the GitHub. So since with this integration, all these developers can create their feature branch and then merge it, and they can send it for a review, and then it is merged in the master branch, and then it got published, so that everyone could collaboratively work, and we can have like a versions so that we can roll back all the changes if needed. So after this, it is automatically creating a ADF publish branch which contains the ARM template of our Azure Data Factory, which then releases using the release pipeline to the higher environments like the test and prod environments. So we are only publishing it into the development environment. So this is how we are achieving the CI CD. So in this case, the continuous integration, which is CI, will be the manual process. So developers have to collaboratively create feature branches and then merge their changes once their debugging is finished. So this is like a manual process, and in continuous deployment this will be like the automated process. So this is like the option 1 for implementing CI/CD in Azure Data Factory using the Azure Data Factory publish. Okay, so let's jump over to our browser and create our Azure DevOps project so that we can build an environment where developers can collaboratively work to provide a data solution. So let's jump onto the browser and let's get started. Okay, so in the browser, all you have to do is type like devops.azure.com. So this will leads us to our Azure DevOps. So here, as you can see in the Azure DevOps, we have to get started with Azure DevOps, but in here we need to click on to the switch directory. So in the switch directory, all you have to do is you have to choose the default directory. Okay, so because once you go into the home page of your Microsoft Azure, as you can see, we are having like the default directory present for our Azure account. So we are going to do the same, just click on to your account, then there you go. You again have to switch directory. You need to choose the default directory here, and then you can choose continue. But before that, let's select country here. So I'll select India for me, and also just select the region which is closest to you. I'll select South India here and just give like this characters. Click on continue. So we are now creating our Azure DevOps organization. Again, you need to select your account, and there you go. You are in our Azure DevOps organization. Okay, so this is like the home page of our Azure DevOps organization. So as you can see, this is our organization name, and all you can do is we can go into the organization setting to learn a bit about more. So as you can see, this is the name of your organization, so you can pick it up here, and this is the URL of our organization. So as you can see, if we go into the projects, we don't have any projects here. So we are going to create a new project here in a while. But if you go into the billing one, so as you can see, we got all the information about the billing. So we are not going to worry about billing that much. So all we can do is we can also go into the Azure directory, and as you can see, we got the active Azure directory, which is our default directory for Microsoft Azure. So all we can do is we can just go ahead to create the project. So all you can do is go into the project and click on new project here, or else we can go into the home page, and as you can see, we got that prompt for creating our project. So all you can do is we can just create our project. So I'll give the name as ADF CICD. So this will be our project name, and you can give the description to describe your project. So I'll keep this as a private, so the visibility will be the private, and you can click on advanced. So in advanced, we got the version control. So we also have like the team foundation version control, but for our lecture, let's keep it a Git only. And in the work item process, we have many processes like Agile, CMMI, and the Scrum. But we will keep it simple and use the basic only. So we will click on create project here, and there you go. Our project has been created. So as you can see, we got the hierarchy as our organization, and then we have our project. So every organization could have multiple projects here. So this is how our hierarchy goes. So as you can see in the overview, we will be having like a dashboard. So you can have like the Kanban boards where you will be having like the agile development work, but we are not going to use the boards that much. So we are only going to use the repos and the pipelines features. So in the repos, we have our GitHub repository where we will store all our ADF templates, which is also known as ARM templates. And then we can use like different methods like commit, then pushes, and creating the different feature branches to collaboratively work with the team of developers. And also we got the pipelines. So here we will be having our pipelines, and in test and artifacts we are not going to worry about that much. We are going to only have to worry about repos as well as the pipelines. So I hope you understood what is Azure DevOps, how we can create an organization, and the projects as well. Okay, so since our project has been created, now we need to set up our Azure Data Factory. So all we can do is, generally we can create like 3 Azure Data Factories. One will be the dev, one will be like the test, and then the production. So it depends on the organization. Organizations can have like multiple test environments as well, but to keep it simple, let's create 3 Azure Data Factories in our subscription, as well as those 3 Azure Data Factories will be in the different resource groups. So let's jump on to our Azure portal and just type like data factories. So as you can see, we got only one COVID reporting tutorial which we were using in the previous lectures, but we need to create our Azure Data Factory now. So just click on create now. Here we have like the Azure subscription, which is like pay as you go subscription. Then you got the resource group. So we need to create a new resource group here. So we will give the name as, the first one will be the dev adf ci cd demo. Okay, so this will be the name of our resource group. Then the name of our adf is dev adf ci cd demo tutorial. So the region will be Central India and the version will be 2. So in the git configuration, we can configure the git later, because we are going to do that using the Azure DevOps. So we can do that later. Then we can accept this default ones, advanced as well as networking, and the tags as well. So we'll just click on review plus create now. Okay, so let's click on create. Okay, so the deployment is in progress right now. So in the meanwhile, let's create other 2 Azure Data Factories as well. Okay, so the deployment is succeeded. So again, we can go to the data factories now, and if we refresh it, as you can see, we got our Azure Data Factory dev resource. Again, we'll select another one here. Again, we are going to create a new resource group. So it will be like the test adf ci cd tuto demo. This will be our resource group for test Azure Data Factory. Then the name will be like test adf ci cd demo tutorial. Hope this name is not taken. Again, the region will be like Central India, the version will be 2, and then we are going to review and create our Azure Data Factory. So just create it. As you can see, the deployment is in progress, and there you go, the deployment has been succeeded. So once you go into the data factories again and click on refresh, as you can see, we got the test as well. So all you can do is, we can create the last one, which is the production. So here we are again going to create a new one, which is like prod adf i-cd demo. Okay, and the name, which is like again prod adf ci cd demo tutorial. Okay, and the region is also similar, which is Central India, which is closest to me, and the version is 2. Then again review plus create, and again we'll create our Azure Data Factory. Okay, so the deployment is in progress right now. Let it complete, and the deployment is succeeded. So as you can see, if we go into the Azure Data Factories, if we refresh this, as you can see, we got our 3 Azure Data Factory pipelines present in different resource group as required. So once this is done, we need to set up our Git repository and connect it to our Azure Data Factory. So we can do that using the Azure Data Factories itself, where we can configure our Git, but I will prefer to do it using the DevOps. So all you can do is go to the DevOps home and go into our projects here, and in projects you got the option of repos in the left menu. So as you can see, we have like the adf ci/cd repository already created, but we will create new repositories in this case. So we are going to click on plus here. So as you can see, the repository name. So all you can do is give the repository name. So in this case we can give is like adf ci-cd. Okay, so we are going to create our repository now. Just create it, and there you go, our repository has been created. Okay, so as you can see, we have now got our two repositories. So this will be our Azure Data Factory repository, which is built specifically for our ADF resources which we have created. So all you can do is go into the branches now. So in branches, as you can see, we only got the main branch, but if you create it using the Azure Data Factory, then this branch can be called master as well. So main or master will be your branch. But to set up a policies, all you have to do is go into the more option and just go into the branch policies. So in branch policies, there is very important aspect like require a minimum number of reviewers. So you cannot like do all the changes in the main branch itself. It needs to be reviewed first. So this has to be reviewed by certain reviewers in your team, and then you can able to merge all those changes to the main branch. So all you have to do is you can just go and enable it, and the minimum number of viewers will be like the 2 by default here. And you can select like allow requester to approve their own changes, so that you can select that too. So but in this case, let's don't make it very complicated, so I'll just disable it for now. But in the real project, you have to enable this setting. So I'll just go into that, and since our branch is already created, we need to configure it into our data factory. So all you can do is go into your data factory and go into our dev data factory, where you need to integrate your Git repository. So just go into the Azure Data Studio. So in the ADF Studio, you will be able to set up your GitHub repository. Okay, so as you can see, it got the option for Azure Data Factory to configure GitHub repository. So you can do that from here, or else you can go into the author now, and in author you got the data factory. But if you drop down, you can use the setup code repository here as well. So this is another option, and also you got another option like go to the manage, and in manage you got the source control as a Git configuration. So in the Git configuration, all you have to do is just you need to click on configure. So all you can go do is like click on the repository name. So in the repository, we got two options. First one is Azure DevOps Git, and we got the GitHub. So all you can do is you need to select the Azure DevOps Git here. And as you can see, we got the Azure Active Directory. So which is like the default directory which we already have present. So all you can do is you can click on continue here, and in here you can select the repository. So as you can see, we have already organization present in our Azure DevOps. So we got the Azure DevOps organization name here. As you can see, we got the project as well created already. So we got ADF CI/CD project created, and the repository name as well. So you can just go ahead and select the ADF CI/CD, and as you can see, we got the collaboration branch. So the collaboration branch will be the main, but you can create your own collaboration branch as well. So for now, let's select the main and only. And like the publish branch, you cannot change. This will be like the ADF publish. In this branch, your ARM template will be generated and stored, so that it could be deployed to other environments. So for those, we have already created our ADF resource for our test as well as development environment, and you got the root folder. So this displays the name of the folder to location of your ADF where the JSON resources are imported. So I'll just leave it as it is. And as you can see, we can also like import resources into this branch. So you can just select the branch where you will import existing resources from the live environment, and this can be like main branch or the existing branch as well. So we'll keep it as default only, and just click on apply here. Okay, so as you can see, our repository is connected successfully. So you can just save it, and as you can see, all our changes will be in the main branch from now. So if you go into like the author, as you can see, instead of the live mode, you got the main branch over here. So you can do all your deployments effectively using this Azure DevOps integration and the Git integration. So this will allow your developers to collaboratively work on your Azure Data Factory. So since you already have like how to create pipelines from different copy activities, and also we have integrated it with different Azure services, so you can play with it to understand more about the Azure Data Factory and the CI/CD integration, as well as integrating with DevOps. Okay, so this was all about today's lecture and the whole series on the Azure Data Factory tutorial for beginners. So this lecture we have seen all about Azure Data Factory version 2 and what benefits it's brought onto the table from as compared to its predecessor. And also we have seen like the overview of Azure Data Factory version 2 and their enhancement, and also seen all about the continuous integration and continuous development, as well as the DevOps practices for Azure Data Factory, where we have integrated and created our Azure DevOps organization and created a project, and then integrated our Azure DevOps with our Azure Data Factory, so that developers can collaboratively work and the development and the operations teams can collaborate using the DevOps effectively for agile development. So this was really fun. So if you have any difficulties, you can let me know in the comments and I'll get back to you as soon as possible. Thanks for watching.